Alright, welcome back to another homework video, you guys. This time we're looking at semester 2, homework number 7, and this had to do with creating the day counter class. So this homework, I hope that you guys did it, because I'm sure if you did, you would have realized that, hey, this is really helpful for what we're doing right now with BDay, with the sorting of birthdays. So hopefully you guys were able to at least look at it and try to understand it. And then if you did do it and you have yours working, maybe consider implementing it into your BDay project. But anyway, so you guys were responsible for the is leap year method and the day of year method. And so if you'll notice that this doesn't have a constructor, so you absolutely could have made a constructor, but I'll show you, what you can do if you don't need to make a constructor, because this doesn't really take any parameters. So we'll take a look at that too. And then this is what we were testing it with. So let's go ahead and jump right in here. So we have our day counter class. So first thing we have here is a private static int array of month day count. And so what this is this is set to all of these indexes. And so there's 12 indexes here, and what this is it's the number of days per month. So January is 31, February is 28, March is 31, so on and so forth. And so you notice that for February, the second one here, we have it set at 28. So we're going to deal with leap years, later on. And that's what this is, and this will become important later. And then, so we have public static boolean is leap year, and so this, obviously returns true if it is, and if it's not, it returns false. So for this, you did have to do a little outside research. I highly doubt that anybody right off the top of their heads knew all of the rules for leap years. I mean, if you did, cool. I certainly didn't. So we have our little Google search here. So I just looked up leap year rules, and so I knew it had to be divisible by 4, but I wasn't sure if it, was anything else. So this is what Google gave me. So it must be divisible by 4, like I knew, except for end of century years, which must be divisible by 400. So 2000 was a leap year, but 1900 was not, because 1900 is not divisible by 400. The reason why has to do with keeping up with the rotations of the earth, so that our timing for stuff seasonally isn't wrong. It's, I don't know, it's kind of interesting, but you're not responsible to understand why. These are the rules we're given. We have to get the computer to understand them too, for our Boolean method. So let's take a look at how we do that. So you guys talked about De Morgan's law in your class. So this isn't quite that, but it's, this is a pretty long Boolean statement here. So first of all, it has to be divisible by 4. If it's not divisible by 4, we don't even want to look at divisible by 100 or 400 or anything. It has to be divisible by 4. So we start with if, year modulo 4, which remember the modulo gives you the remainder. So if the remainder is 0, then, it's divisible by that number evenly. So if it's divisible by 4, and so if this comes back false, it doesn't even look at the other side of this. It just says, oh, this is an and statement, so these both have to be true. So if this isn't true, who cares what the rest of this says? So we start with, is it divisible by 4? And then we go into the other part that was kind of weird. So if it's the end of a century, because if it ends in 100 or 2 zeros, right? So the end of a century, it by default has to be divisible by 4, because 100 is divisible by 4. But if it's the end of a century, it has to be divisible by 400, not just by 4. So if this is true, then we have to take a look at, okay, year modulo 100 does not equal 0, right? So is it divisible by 100? If it's divisible by 100, then we're going to then this part returns false, and then we're going to take a look at this. So this is an or statement, so only one of these has to be true. Or year modulo 400 equals 0. So this is saying if it's not the end of a century, which means it's not divisible by 100, or if this returns false, so this is divisible by 100, if it's divisible by 400, then we're going to get the true for this side of the and this will return true. And then otherwise, so if this fails or this fails, then we're just going to return false. So hopefully you went ahead and looked that up. If you just did modulo 4, because that's, you thought it was simpler than that, that's fine too. But hopefully you understand now that I've shown you the actual weird rules to this. Hopefully you understand how this works. So, and then the other thing I want to point out is my if statements here. I don't have brackets. If you have an if statement or an else statement and you only put one line of code underneath it, you can just do the intent. It doesn't even have to be a return statement. It can just be, a variable equals 1 or something plus plus. Like if you only have one line after the if statement, you can just do the indent. And then also notice that there's no constructor in this. So public static int day of year, so that gives you like how many days, so like 255 or whatever, given the month, the day, and the year. And the reason we need the year, you're probably wondering why we need that parameter. It's because we have to check if it's a leap year or not. So you need the year. And then, so we have int day count and int temp month counter equals 0. So while temp month counter plus 1, so we want to start at 1, here is less than, I wonder if we just set it to 1. I think you can just set this to 1 and then you can just leave this like that. But the way I did it is I just added 1 here. While temp month counter plus 1 is less than m, so whatever month you put in here. Then day count, which is going to be our total, because see, that's what our return is down here. We're going to plus equals, and remember this is the same thing as saying day count equals day count plus, so plus equals month day count, which is our array up here, of temp month counter. So what this does is, so let's say we have the month is 3, so that would be March. So we start at 1, 1 is less than 3. We're going to add this first index, which is 31. That's all the days in January. That makes sense, right? So we have to add all the days in January to get to whatever day is, number day it is in March. So then you keep doing that until you get to 3. So we have 1 is less than 2 because we keep adding here. So then we add 31 plus 28, and then we want to stop there. The reason it's not less than or equal to, because we don't want to add all the days in March, because we're only a certain amount through March if, our month is March. So we don't want to add all 31. We want to stop there. And then all we have to do to finish the job there is day count plus equals d. So that gets us all the days before March. D is how many days we're into March. And so if leap years weren't a thing, we'd be done. But because leap years are a thing, we've already written to check if it's a leap year. So if it is 1, if it's not 1, we're done. That's all you got to do. If it is 1, so then this returns true. And then remember, this is how you call methods that you've written in the same class, like no day counter dot, no nothing like that, just is leap year. And then if day count is greater than 31 plus 28, or if it's greater than all the days in January and all the days in February, aka we're past what would have been February 29th, right? Then we got to add 1 to the day count for that extra day in February. And then once we've checked count for leap year, we return day count. So let me go ahead and show you some of the stuff that I've done. Let me go ahead and cancel that. We don't really need to show that. So compile and run this, and then I have the boolean. Let me do 1900 to show you that my thing works here, because 1900 is divisible by 4, but it's not a leap year because it's not divisible by 400. So go ahead and run this. False. And then we have January 12th is in fact the 12th day of the year, and then the rest of these, you could do math for it to figure out. So, and it's just, December 31st, so 365, that's what we want. And then 366 for a leap year. So, hopefully that makes sense. This is kind of looking into, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is I don't have any equals new day counter. So like I said, if you made a constructor, that's great, but I just want you to know that you can do this too. If you don't really need a parameter, because we don't really need to put anything into day counter itself, we just have to put parameters into the methods. You can just do day counter dot, like the name of the class, and then the method. So like, how we have math.random, you don't ever create a new math or a new canvas. You just use canvas.rand or math.random. Same idea here. We don't have a constructor because we don't really need one. So we just call the name of the class, dot is leap year, and then put a parameter there. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. This was looking kind of into complex Boolean statements, counting. Hopefully you guys can see how this is helpful for your BDay. And with that, I think we're done. If you have any additional questions, put them down in the comments, and I will see you next week. Thank you.